Hello everyone and salam unimaksku sayang. We are from group 7. So the topic we choose for assignment 2 is option 3. Based on the article, what are the causes and the consequences of racial and ethnic discrimination in the present day context? So let's start with introduction.
Hi, my name is Claudia Alviana. I'm going to talk about the introduction of these two articles. The first one is Ethnic Differences and Predictor of Racial and Religious Discrimination in Malaysia by Aminuddin 2022. It is examined that different ethnic groups in Malaysia perceive and experience racial and also religious discrimination in Malaysia. The second article talks about the racist discrimination in internet advertising, evidence from a field experiment by Segal and Svesky 2024. It is investigate the racial bias on Meta's advertising platform that using image of individual by varying skin tone. It is find that the darker skinned individual face higher cost of receive less reach compared to lighter skinned individual.
Hi everyone, today I will be summarizing a study on race discrimination in internet advertising. The study is about racial bias in meta advertising platform in Brazil and the US. The study found that meta advertising algorithm is not neutral. When ads feature both lighter skin and darker skin model, most of the budget was auto-allocated to lighter skin model even when budget were equal. Advertisement with lighter skin model also receive more like compared to darker skin model. To achieve the same engagement, advertiser had to spend more on ads with darker skin model, adding financial barrier. Meta optimization tool prioritized ads that were already performing well. Since lighter skin ads had higher engagement, the platform continued to allocate more budget to them, reinforcing the bias. So in conclusion, the study concluded that meta technology unintentionally reinforced racial bias through its algorithm. The author suggests that the technology companies should take responsibility for this bias outcome and work toward fairer practices. Hi everyone, today I will be summarizing a study on race discrimination in internet advertising. The study is about racial bias in meta advertising platform in Brazil and the US. The study found that meta advertising algorithm is not neutral. When ads feature both
race and religion are so deeply intertwined that discussing discrimination feels dangerous, like touching a live wire. But a study finally measured what everyone talked about: ethnic differences in prejudice between majorities Malay and minority Chinese by Nur Amali Aminuddin. The data in this study shows a sharp gap. 35% of Malays answered they would not want neighbor of different race, which is double the rate of Chinese respondents, which is 17%. The gap in religious discrimination was practically comparable within 34% of Malays and 18% of Chinese. These aren't just numbers, they are evidence of invisible social structures. Here what's fascinating. Age, education, and political opinion were all minor factors. So what is the single strongest predictor? Discrimination itself. People who rejected other races tended to reject other religion as well. This implies that Malaysia do more than merely identify race with religion. They completely mix the two together. So why it's happened? The study points to two psychological engines driving this. First is the intergroup contact theory. Malay and Chinese simply don't mix enough in school, workplace, or neighborhood. Second is social identity theory. Malay pride in their majority status, constitutionally tied to Islam, create an unconscious sense of superiority. So what is the real world consequences when discrimination happens? When race and religion fuse into a single identity marker, everyday prejudice get reinforced. Chinese Muslims face double exclusion. Political parties exploit this divide. Even progressive policies fail when people won't share street, let alone opportunities. So the study message is clear. Malaysia famous in unity in diversity remain a myth until both races confront this uncomfortable truth. Because tolerance isn't about celebrating differences. It starts with admitting where we still draw the lines.
Let's move to a comparative analysis of two academic articles that examine racial discrimination in different contexts. Let's look the key similarity highlighted in the table. First, the core focus. Both articles investigate racial discrimination through each expose it in a different setting, one in the Malaysia content and the other one is a global digital content. Despite these differences, both studies show that discrimination still exists in the society. Next, the negative consequences. Discrimination are shown in the both articles lead to limited access to opportunity, social exclusion, and economic loss for affected groups. This negative outcome highlight the serious impact of discrimination on individual and community. The impact on minority. Each article demonstrates that minority groups consistently experience disadvantages regardless of the specific content, whether in a traditional social structure or digital platform. Minority face barriers that limit their participation and success. 4. The role of personal bias. Both studies emphasize that personal attitudes such as prejudice or stereotype is played a significant role in reinforcing discrimination. This shows that discrimination is not only systematic but also perpetuated by individual behavior and choice. Last but not least is a recommendation for awareness. Both articles advocate for increased awareness and meaningful reform to address both taboo and systematic forms of discrimination. They call for a collective effort to challenge and change discriminatory practice whether in the policy or in the technology.
I will be presenting a comparison between two articles related to racial discrimination, focusing on 6 main aspects shown in this table. First aspect is geographic focus. Article 1 is focused on Malaysia, while Article 2 is focused on Brazil and United States. Second aspect is religious focus. Article 1 examines how racial and religious discrimination happen between Malays and Chinese ethnic in Malaysia. Article 2 investigates algorithmic bias in internet advertising that causes racial discrimination based on skin color. Third aspect is methodology. The methodology used in Article 1 is quantitative analysis using independent sample tests based on survey data that measure discrimination levels. Article 2, on the other hand, uses a field experiment with A/B testing of digital ads. It compares ads with lighter and darker skin models to measure and budget and user engagement. Fourth aspect is example. Examples in Article 1 include attitudes towards neighbors, public sector hiring, and social identity. In Article 2, examples include workplace discrimination, unfair hiring, and access to services. Second last aspect is suggested intervention. Article 1 suggests legal reforms such as the National Harmony Bills to reduce ethnic discrimination in Malaysia. Article 2 calls for algorithmic transparency, regular audits, and anti-bias measures in digital advertising platform. For the last aspect is relevance to anthropology and sociology. Article 1 is relevant because it explores ethnic relation, social stratification, and how state policies impact multicultural societies. Article 2 relates to the study of digital social structures, racial bias, reproduction, and the intersection of technology and social inequality.
For the key question, there is 4 key questions that we got from the articles. The first question, what form of discrimination are identified in each article? In Malaysian context, racial and religious discrimination mainly between Malay and Chinese or other minorities. Meanwhile, in the global context, racial discrimination based on skin color in digital advertising. For the second question, what are the main predictors or causes of discrimination in each context? In Malaysian context, it is about ethnic background and government policy, for example, Bumiputra affirmative action. For the global context, algorithmic decision-making in ads platform for viewer engagement patterns reinforcing bias. For the third question, what are the consequences of discrimination for affected groups? In Malaysian context, limited access to education, employment, and for a minority. In the global context, economy penalties or advertiser using darker skin models. And the last question is, how do these findings contribute to anthropology and sociology? In Malaysian context, insight into ethnic relations, social and impact of state policy. Meanwhile, in the global, it is highlight role of technology in. To conclude this presentation, racial and religious discrimination still have an impact on people both offline and online. Discrimination in Malaysia is driven by factors such as socio-economic class, religion, and racial races. Algorithmic prejudice on websites such as Meta leads to unequal treatment depending on skin tone. These findings are highly relevant into today's environment since social and digital interaction are so intertwined. By shedding light on how identity and power dynamics operate in many contexts, the topic emphasized the need of roof in inequality in order to build a more inclusive society from an anthropological and sociological perspective.